Testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. AD 33, before Jesus went to endure the cross at Calvary, he looked at his 12 apostles and said, "All things that are written by the prophets concerning the Son of Man shall be accomplished." 400 years before Christ, it was prophesied that he would be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver and that a potter's field would be purchased with the money. AD 33, Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. After Judas repented, he left the money in the temple to go hang himself. The chief priests and elders took that blood money and they bought a potter's field. 200 years before Christ, it was prophesied that they would smite the shepherd and the sheep would be scattered. In AD 33, the men that held Jesus mocked him and smote him, and when they had blindfolded him, they struck him in the face, saying, "Prophesy! Who is it that smote thee?" At this point, all the disciples forsook Jesus. 600 years before Christ, it was prophesied that he was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. AD 33, the chief priests accused him of many things, but he answered nothing. 600 years before Christ, it was prophesied that he was wounded for our transgressions and that he was bruised for our iniquities. AD 33, then Pilate therefore took Jesus and scourged him. 535 years before Christ, it was prophesied that the plowers plowed upon my back and they made long their furrows. AD 33, the Roman soldiers whipped Jesus with a cat o' nine tails, ripping apart his flesh. 1,000 years before Christ, it was prophesied that the dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me, they pierced my hands and my feet. AD 33, it was the third hour, they crucified him. 600 years before Christ, it was prophesied that he was numbered with the transgressors. AD 33, Christ was crucified with 2 malefactors and 2 thieves. 1,000 years before Christ, it was prophesied that they would part my garments among them and cast lots upon my vesture. 33, the soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, took his clothes, divided them up, and cast lots for him. 1,000 years before Christ, it was prophesied, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou far from helping me, and from my words of my roaring?" AD 33, after 6 hours of hanging on the cross, Jesus roared, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," that is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Years before Christ, it was prophesied, "In my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink." AD 33, and when Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, "It is finished," and he bowed his head and he gave up the ghost. Years before Christ, it was prophesied, "He keepeth all his bones, and not one of them is broken." AD 33, the soldiers broke the legs of those who were crucified with Jesus, but when they came to Jesus, they saw that he was dead already. Well, guess what? They didn't break his bones. 400 years before Christ, it was prophesied that they shall look upon me, whom they have crucified. AD 33, one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side. So all those who were present looked upon him. 1,000 years before Christ, it was prophesied that thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. AD 33, after Christ spent 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, God raised him from the dead. Explained David, seeing this before spake of the resurrection of Christ, that his soul was not left in hell, neither did his flesh see corruption. As before Christ, it was prophesied, "Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee." AD, Paul explains the resurrection. When they had fulfilled all that was written of him, they took him down from the tree and laid him in a sepulchre. But God raised him from the dead. That he raised up Jesus again, as it is also written in the 2nd Psalm, "Thou art my son, this day I have begotten thee." Begotten means to bring forth, meaning God brought forth Jesus from the dead. Over 513 eyewitnesses to the resurrection of Christ. He is the most famous person to have ever walked this earth. Life changed this world forever, hence why we have our whole entire calendar system based off of him. God commendeth his love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. He made him to be sin, who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God in him. You think of what Christ did for us? How could you possibly add anything to the work of Christ? By grace that we are saved through faith, and that not of ourselves, it is the gift of God. Christmas time comes around, we give gifts. What do you do when you give a gift? You receive it with thanksgiving. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation. Believe it, receive it, trust in Christ.